The learner group is from 11 to 12, sorry. The duration is 45 minutes, 8 a.m. to 8:45. Then the size 10, the lesson number 7. As for the aims, I have my aims to enable students to express future plans, intentions, and predictions. I have another one, to help students understand and use the future time expressions such as tomorrow, soon. Develop students' capacity to make promises, offers, and requests about the future. For my lesson objective, I have, by the end of the lesson, students will be able to understand the concept of the simple future tense, form the simple future tense using will plus the base verb, construct sentences using the future tense, engage in conversations using the simple future tense. Okay, for the introduction, I have 5 minutes for the content and picture activity. So we review what we did last class, which is the present tense. So the teacher will review the lesson by asking the children to construct sentences in the present tense. For example, I bathe every day. And then this will be done orally. For example, what is a present tense? How is a present tense formed? And can you give an example of a sentence in the present tense? So children will give suggestions, maybe I bathe every day, I brush my teeth every day. That said, I will go now to sentences in the present tense and sentences in the future tense. And I ask them to look at those sentences and then sort out those are in the present tense and those that are in the future tense. Then I'll go now to the presentation, that's the lesson proper. I will divide the class into 2 groups. One will be looking out for the sentences that are in the present tense, and then one will be looking out for the sentences that are in the future tense. Okay, then when the children have identified that, those are, some of them will suggest that the sentence in the present tense will be like, I bathe every day. And then the sentence in the future will be like, I will bathe tomorrow. I go then for the differences, like I said, the sentence, another difference I might give is for the present tense, the verb is in the present, and then all of it, for similarities, both of them will have the verb in the present, and then for the differences, one will be in the present and one will be something like still to happen, and so they will use the verb, they will use will plus the verb form. So I will introduce the simple future tense and give them the formula how to form the future simple tense. For example, we use will plus the verb's base form. The verb's base form means that a verb that has not been conjugated, you have not added anything to it. The way it was created, you have not added anything to it. Then I will highlight how you use the future simple tense. You use it to make plans, you use it to make predictions or your intention on what you want to do. Then I will go back to them and ask them from what I have explained, can they give me examples, construct sentences using the future simple tense. So someone will say, I will travel to London next week. I will ask them to construct a paragraph, just a short paragraph, using the simple future tense about, like, maybe plan a trip or how they are going to spend their summer holiday. So since it's something that indicates future, I'll ask them to write a short paragraph individually on their plans or how they are going to spend their summer holiday on a trip or how to plan a trip. When they do that individually, then I'll ask them to swap their books. And then what they are looking out for, whoever is marking, you're looking out if the person has actually used the simple future tense. What are you looking out for? What's like I'm going to, I will. And you check the verb, if the verb is in the present or is in the past. Because if the verb is in the past, then it's not the future present tense. For the conclusion, I'll actually give a short quiz. This quiz now is going to help them to be able to construct those verbs in the future present tense. So I'll give a short quiz like filling the gaps. I will put the verbs in bracket and then ask them down to change those verbs to complete the sentence in the future tense. So for example, I bathe. I'll put the verb in bracket. I bathe every day. Then you can change that, ask them to change the sentence now to the future.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. We have any questions, we have any reactions, we hear from two people and then we progress.
Yeah, I think she took time to explain the different stages very well. But towards the end, it's like she talked of self-assessment as assessing herself on what she was supposed to do, which I think self-assessment is about the students correcting the exercise they did by themselves and being very honest. Thank you.
The evaluation that you intend to carry out at the end of the class, where students make their comments, you share pieces of papers to all the students in the class to comment and you collect them, or...
They will write.
It's actually an outstanding session plan. Why? It has all the components clearly stated. I could actually see clear aims, clear objectives, which were stated and they were smart. The only little thing that could be adjusted with objectives is that they were not differentiated. So you have to differentiate the objectives to meet the needs of all the learners. Because the way you stated, it looks like everybody could actually attain those objectives. Okay. Teacher activities actually matched learner activities. So whatever the instructions that you gave, you saw the learner, actually saw the learner doing what the teacher asked them to do. As for active learning strategies, I actually saw two active learning strategies come out clearly. There was decision, and there was same and different. So actually saw learners thinking at these 2 points. Now assessment for learning, peer assessment came out clearly. The rubric was a little absent. I don't know how you presented the rubric to the learners to be able to check the work of their peer. So maybe you have to get better there, get something which you are providing for them to use in doing the checking. Again, you moved around while they all check what they have done, and I'm sure that in that because of moving there was some feedback given to them to move the learning forward. So those are the two assessment for learning techniques that were actually clearly used. Again, the teacher evaluated the lesson at the end by using the learners for reflection. So wonderful lesson.
Thank you so much. We're going to hear from the next person, and that is Doc. Present.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, sir.
The program title is 0610 IGCSE Biology Year 10. The learners group 14 to 15 years, duration 45 minutes, lesson number 1, class Cambridge Upper Section 1, class size 8, assumed learners' knowledge. Learners are able to distinguish items using a particular criteria, including living organisms. Learners can name and explain in simple terms some characteristics of learning. Learning aims: to enable learners to acquire scientific knowledge and understanding of scientific theories, to develop a range of experimental skills including variables and working safely. Learning objectives. At the end of this lesson, learners should be able to define the characteristics of living things by describing movement as an action by an organism or part of the organism causing a change of position or place. 2. Respiration as the breakdown of food in the presence of oxygen to release energy. 3. Sensitivity as a response to stimuli by the organism. Growth as a permanent increase in size or dry weight. Reproduction as the processes that make more of the same kind or of the same species of organism. Excretion as the elimination of waste products from the system. Topic and content. Characteristics and classification of living things. Teacher activity, learner activity. Introduction. The introduction will take 5 minutes, and at this point, the teacher divides the class into 2 groups. There are also resources which are to be used in the class, which include a potted bean plant, a potted granite plant, Don't Touch Me, that's my Mimosa colica, maize, chalk, cardboards, calculators, that will be used. These items are presented by the teacher to the learners, and the learners are asked to put these items into 2 different categories. The learner's responsibility is to separate this into 2 different categories, and when they separate, the teacher is going to ask each of the groups to assign a leader to explain the criteria that was used in placing those organisms into 2 groups. The teacher writes the topic on the board, characteristics of living things. And the learners are asked to reflect deeply on the criteria that was used in placing these organisms into different categories. And of course, they were instructed to write down, to put that reasoning in writing. When they do that, the teacher is going to ask them to present the characteristics or whatever criteria that they use. Each group is going to assign somebody to go to the board and write the criteria. The 2 groups will write separately, and then the teacher now will try to look at synonyms, because it is expected that they will use different words to mean the same thing. So the teacher is going to look at synonyms and then come out with the characteristics of living things, and then identify the number of characteristics of living things. I am withholding the number here because if the coordinators permit me, there is an exercise which I will wish to carry out at the end. So the first group will read about 3, will read 3 of the characteristics, and the other group defines, and then we interchange now. The other group which was defining reads, and the other group which was reading now defines. And for evaluation, the teacher will find out from the learners to what extent they think they have mastered the characteristics of living things and can define. And this will be the end of the lesson. Thank you.
Another wonderful plan, actually. Why wonderful? The various components again came out clearly. Clear aims, objectives. Active learning strategies came out clearly. Apopical, decision, same and different. At some point even came out. But again, when they asked you what formative assessment the strategies you used there, you used one here but did not mention. Why the decision was coming on as an active learning strategy and so on. I'm sure that at that point you were asking oral questions to actually get them, bring out those things. So oral questioning could be used here as an assessment for learning technique. Then, okay, at the beginning of the plan, there is a class title which I did not understand. You said something like Cambridge Upper One. Can you read that what you said? Can you just read it out?
Cambridge Upper Secondary 2.
What is that?
That's year 11.
Year 11. Oh,
Yeah.
that's the label you have for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Year 11.
But it's upper secondary, second class.
Okay.
Yes, it's upper secondary, first class should be the second.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. Again, resources for the different activities didn't really come out. You did not really state the resources clearly. It's true that you had these things, but they were not clearly stated in the plan. So you have that. And then finally, evaluation was wonderful. Evaluation came in as the form of feedback from the learners.
Yeah.
See, so you see every component was present and you can only get better. Wonderful plan, please.
Thank you. What we've been able to achieve so far. What happened this morning was a type of actual assessment. We wanted to see where we are. We know where we're going to. So as to know what to do to get where you are supposed to be. Now, I've identified the following. That one, the general idea of a lesson plan has been understood. That a good number of us here can intentionally include active learning strategies in our lesson plan. We've also seen that we are able to incorporate assessment for learning techniques in our lesson plan. We are happy that some of us are already concerned about how we are going to check on how the lesson went. The question of the lesson, we're already thinking about reflective practice on how we can get better with the evaluations that came up. However, we have realized that most of us here have issues with objectives. We have issues with objectives. And we are reiterating that objectives should be differentiated. And that objectives, most of the objectives should be the assessment objectives that you have in your syllabuses. I want to re-emphasize on that, because that's where we usually go wrong. If you can take a topic, I'm a maths teacher, you ask me to teach trigonometry to you, I'll ask you which exam you want to take. If you're taking the Cameroon GCE, the assessment objectives are different, and our approach will be different. If you're taking the Cambridge exams, the assessment objectives for trigonometry are different, the approach will be different. If you're doing the AP calculus, make an exam, my approach will be different because the objectives are different. The mistake that most teachers in Cameroon make is that they know that a topic is a topic. You hear the name, I'm a biology teacher, you hear the production, you just go and you start teaching. No. You need to look at the assessment objectives. What will the examiner be looking out for when they will be setting the exams? What will they be looking out for when they are correcting the students' scripts? Because that's what makes the difference. What do you know about differentiated instruction and inclusive practices and inclusion? Write everything that you know on that topic. Everything that you know.
On the career.
Yes, on the career.
Differentiated instruction. This is a pedagogic teaching and learning approach that addresses the specific needs of each learner. The learners have different abilities and potentials, and therefore, differentiated instruction and inclusion aims at giving every learner an opportunity to learn in spite of his or her physical or mental weaknesses by adapting the teaching learning to suit the condition of the learner.
The things that caught my attention in his description are one, when I hear about all learners, and then adapting teaching instructions. You say you adapt to make sure their needs are met. Okay. And the fact that we have learners of varying needs in the classroom also came out very clearly. Okay, thank you.
Differentiated instruction and inclusion is a method of teaching using different and varied methods or practices in order to meet the needs of as many learners as possible. It also entails making sure that the learners with various needs are met, and no learner should be left behind regardless the condition or situation in which the learner may have. These may be difficulties or in assimilation or physical disabilities.
That you make sure that they goes together. Yes?
Differentiated instruction is a teaching approach that tailors learning experiences to accommodate all learners' needs, strengths, and interests, which can also be an active learning strategy which aids the instructor to know his or her learners in order to meet the different needs of those learners. Then, for differentiated instruction for inclusion, it's also a strategy used to meet up with the needs of diverse learners, regardless of their abilities, their backgrounds, to have equal opportunities to participate and succeed in learning.
Wow. Thank you. You need to come out. So what could be the link between differentiated instruction and inclusion?
I think is the aspect of all. Everybody should be accepted, included in the process. Now when they are included, now you should design our lesson in order to know that although everybody is included, they are different. Now we see how to accommodate their various differences without affecting others.
It looks like when you're a secret, you're blessed. Sorry.
That's my Inclusion has to do with the fact we first of all identify that the learners have different needs and they have a right to learn. And therefore, that is what makes us to bring them together, because they have a right to learn despite the fact that they have different needs. And when we bring them together, in order not to leave any of them behind, we must look for different strategies to meet these diverse needs so that at the end.
Since we know differentiated instruction, its main approach is to actually implement and integrate new different methods of meeting the needs of all the learners, since we're talking about all the learners. And inclusion has to deal with the different learners which have maybe some disabilities that cannot enable them to learn well. So while adapting or while integrating those different methods that you want to use to meet the needs of those learners, it will also aid you to know what to do to help those with disabilities. And also,
So what is the link between them?
so differentiated instruction is an approach that is that is implemented to include the
differentiated instruction is an instruction method which is inclusive.
Or generally, the purpose of differentiation is
To solve inclusion problem.
Yes.
The purpose of differentiation is to solve inclusion problem.
Okay.
As a link.
The purpose of differentiation
Is
is inclusion.
Yes. That's the purpose of differentiation. And I want to ask a further question. And that question is Holy Cross International College an inclusive academic institution?
That's why I would say yes, because when the infrastructure, right, we took into consideration all of that, even on the buildings and in the dormitories, in the classroom. But we've not yet had those extreme cases. That's how I put it. And took into consideration.
So the school is inclusive. So that's the starting point. Inclusive in the sense that we don't select the best students and admit. Because there are schools in which if you don't have a certain mark in their placement test, you are not admitted. Yeah. And yeah, it means such schools are exclusive schools. And please be informed that the new charters of the UN wants all schools to be inclusive. If there is a school that is still exclusive, then you should be careful. They are not meant for this era. It's outdated type of thinking about education. Out of date. Today, the doors of all schools should be opened to everyone who is willing to learn. No matter their disability, their challenges. Let's know the challenges. Their challenges could be physical. If you want to put the physical part aside, the challenges would likely be mental. I have a student who has gone through primary school, wrote the common entrance, for example, and did not pass in his A, pass in his B, and wants to come to Holy Cross International College into Form 1. He writes the placement test, and the placement test shows that he has difficulties in English language. He has difficulties in math. I don't know what subjects that he gave in the placement test. If we are exclusive, based on all of those parameters, we will not admit a child from 1. But if you are inclusive, we are going to accept the child. At the same time, also admitting a child that is coming in, has passed in this A, comes in the placement test, and has all A's. Admit that child in that very classroom. So in the classroom, you have 2 students of different mental abilities. Again, in that very class, we have a student who comes from a family of Catholics. He's a Catholic. He comes with his card. He's a Catholic because it's a Catholic school, right? He's admitted. Another student comes before he's coming to have a veil on their face. And you have an idea that is a Muslim. Now, should that children, on basis of his religion, his or her religion, be rejected?
No. had Muslims there.
Good. So it means that the inclusion we talk about is not just mental and physical, it's even religious. Let me go further. Among the students that are coming to the school, we have a white-skinned child. Would the child be rejected because the child is white-skinned? We could have a child that has eyes like this.
Chinese.
Yeah, China. Would the child be rejected from China?
But I'll come to a point where.
Yeah, before you get there, let me continue. You can have a child that comes in here and as he gets to the campus, he receives a phone call and you hear him saying Kiri. And that gives you an idea of where the child comes from. Would the child be rejected based on his background?
No.
You also have a male child that comes in. A male child that comes in. A female child that comes in. Will you reject the males? Will you reject the males because it's a single sex school? No. So
You still not alright.
yeah. So inclusion here is much bigger than you may think. Inclusion looks at every part of society. Look at gender, looks at cultural background, it looks at race, it looks at body type, everything. Now imagine that, let's imagine that we have a classroom as a classroom that we have in Holy Cross International College. Because the institution was not just designed for Cameroonians, designed for the world, to save the world. Let's say that it has attracted people from across territorial boundaries. They have come in their numbers and we have of them in the classroom. You remember their levels of intellectual attainment are all different. They come from different cultures, they have different beliefs, and we have all of them in a classroom, the same classroom. Can we meet their needs if we don't include everyone? Can we meet all their needs if we don't include everyone? We cannot. So to meet the needs of these varied learners of having the classroom, we must differentiate our lessons. We must differentiate our lessons. You cannot differentiate if you are biased. You cannot differentiate if you are biased. If you have an iota of hate for anything, then you cannot differentiate. Let's imagine that you are racist in your thoughts. Okay, most of us here we are all black-skinned. And subconsciously you have a hatred for the white-skinned person. and you have that person in your classroom, the tendency is that you're going to do what? You're going to exclude that person without even knowing. But the smart person standing around will you are being racist. The very common one is with some of us who are lucky to have been called as prophets of God. The prophet is speaking in tongues, and when you speak, the lame walk. And you come into a classroom that is diverse, you have people from different religious backgrounds. And you're always shouting, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. You are being biased. There's somebody in that classroom who will close up to you just because you have exposed your religious inclination publicly. Yesterday came up we said when there's a threat. That's the word that came up. When there's a threat. Going back to the words of our brothers, Sir K. Robinson, the climbing. Which are climbing and providing. So, if you have an issue with somebody from the east, you have an issue with somebody from the central region, you have an issue with somebody from the northwest, from the southwest, you have an issue with somebody from the grass fields, and you find yourself in an inclusive school place, you should start by healing your thoughts. And see everybody that's in front of you as being, even though they're different, they talk about unity in diversity. Even though we are different, we are the same.
I'm very interested because we're talking about inclusion, and this Cameroon like this, the laws don't accept homosexuals and lesbians, transgender. Would you say the school is not inclusive when it's determined by the law? That's my first question.
Apart from that, should I answer the question immediately or allow you to finish?
That's the first part.
Okay.
True, the school is a Catholic school, and we operate by those good Christian values where we were brought up. Would you include pregnant women and those still same groups, homosexuals and lesbians?
In the school?
Yes, because you have to also follow.
Let's listen. This is key. What is know is key.
Because you have to also follow the teaching, which, if not, you will draw attraction to parents who will not bring their children.
I hope you will not give me the answer. Just ask your question and answer. Okay. Yes. Why do we include? For a good cause, right? If you are including for a good cause, because before we go in there, we are an educational institution with stated values. Whatever we do should be within the values of the institution. Because if you go out of the values of the institution, it means that we're going out of the mission, the vision of the institution. And anything that goes against the vision of the institution is no longer part of the institution. So, if the values of the schools are that we will not admit a pregnant girl for obvious reasons, because we cannot provide the care that she need. One, because it could be a type of stimulus to encourage other girls to also get pregnant. Two, those are the values of the school. So, because of the value of the school, we will not admit the child. That is perfectly okay. The school is in Cameroon, where homosexuality and lesbianism is a crime. And the school, because it's on the territory of the country, must follow the laws of that nation. So as the school is operating in the country, the school has to operate according to the laws of the nation. So the school cannot admit students who have publicly declared that those are their inclinations. and even if even the school makes a mistake and admits such a student, once that is discovered, yes,
without making
any noise, yes, then the school, based on its values, will have every right, legally backed by the school norms and the state, to act accordingly.
What if the state accepted it, sir? Can the school still, within its values, say the law?
Then you have to face the state.
That is also
because in the case of pregnancy, the minister of secondary.
Yeah, the point is that you try to go. Must we differentiate?
Yes.
Okay. So the next question I'm going to ask you is, how do we differentiate? Don't answer the question. Don't answer the question, just think about it. So are we going to differentiate instruction? Yeah, that's why you see they say instruction. So we want to, about teaching and learning. How to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of all the learners in our school. Now listen attentively. There are 3 things that you can differentiate. There are 4 things that you can differentiate, not 3. We can differentiate the outcome that we expect from the different learners in your classroom. I think we saw that already when we were talking about the objectives, right?
Yeah.
And differentiate the outcome. We expect that others are going to do all of this, and others will just be going to do some of it. You can differentiate the outcome. Because by differentiating the outcome, if you have a child that is in your classroom, if the child can already do, has already made one of the objectives of the lesson, you thank God. And if the child has achieved something, so you can differentiate the outcome. That's 1. 2, we can differentiate the learning resources that we bring to the classroom. Like the other day, we had, was it here? Can differentiate the resources that we bring to the classroom. A very good example is that if you have a child that doesn't see, and you are sharing a handout, then you want to give out the handout in Braille to that particular student that is blind. So you're differentiating the resources you're bringing to the classroom. That's a clear-cut example. You can differentiate the resources that you bring to the classroom. That was 2. 3, you can differentiate the process of instruction. How are you aware about it? You can differentiate the process of instruction. The process of instruction. And then the fourth and the last way of differentiating is to bring in additional support, or to give additional support. We also differentiate by giving additional support. Let's remember that we have one goal, right? To get the learners to learn. You can, let me take it over again. We can differentiate the expectation that you have for each and every one of the outcome. You've seen how that is done, right? You can differentiate the resources that you take into the classroom. I think that is also clear. We can differentiate the process, the way we are going about the teaching. And finally, we can differentiate the amount of support that we are giving. For example, if I realize that this is my brother here, he has a lot of challenges, right? I'll spend more time with him in the classroom. I'm spending more time with him. That's really being different, right? Yeah. Okay, the 4 things you just listened to, we've heard differentiation by outcome, by resources, by process, and by additional support, what we refer to as the channels of differentiation. 4 main channels of differentiation. 4. So when you be differentiating your classroom, you decide on which of them you want to use. You may use all, or you use some in a particular learning activity. So I want us to come up with tips for differentiation. How do I differentiate? And to answer that question, we are going to work in those groups, all the channels that we talked about. So we'll have the first group that we're going to call the outcome group. The second group we'll call them the resource group. The third group we'll call the process group. And the last group we'll call it the additional support group. Now, what do we expect from these groups? Okay, let's take the example of the outcome group. Please, outcome group members, we want you to give us tips that we can use to differentiate outcome. We want you to give us, is it 4? Yeah, 4 tips. The same thing goes to the resource group. Give us 3 tips on how we can differentiate by resources. The same thing goes to the process group. Give us 3 tips on how we can differentiate by process. And the additional support group, give us 3 tips on how we can differentiate by additional support. Now, when you bring those tips and share with us, then we'll be rich.
So, translation software, computerized learning apps, worksheets and materials, classroom, environment planning and arranging. So which ones do we think we can use? Because I'm looking more at worksheets and materials.
Yes. I think classroom, environment planning and arranging can only be a good one. Wherein get a situation with children with visual problems,
okay.
right?
Okay. Okay.
You see, we used to place them right at the front. You see, even those who do not really
who needs light, somebody who wants more light.
More light, can put them where the source of light is more. We can give many questions to choose. It's another way of trying to ensure that everybody has something.
Then maybe for languages, I would prefer translation software.
Easy going.
Translation software, because imagine a student is having a translation software in his laptop. It makes it easier for him if he has a challenge with the language. During the lesson, he can just type in
the
keywords there. The software gives him
even the pronunciation.
The stuff with the pronunciation, then he can easily use it now in a sentence. Because there are some of them. I remember we had a situation with those Germans last 2 years, where when you teach, the child has to understand what you're saying in German, then he translates it to his mind now before bringing it back to you in English. Keep to keywords or key concepts to avoid over-dependency. Use a mixture of mastery and developmental tasks. Use extension tasks and opportunities for deeper thinking.
Design group work with students in mind. Sometimes ability levels work, but they can be restrictive.
You have a kind of a class where, let's say there are 8 students.
Yes.
Or 8 learners. Then you know that these are the first 4 in your subject area. Then you set them as group leads. Yeah, and then bring the other learners and position them under them based on their abilities and their strengths. Yeah, that particular way you are sure that kind of like there is going to be peer tutoring. Yeah.
Biology, geography, chemistry. People should tell us which activity in your domain you think you can use to help those gifted and slow learners at the same time.
I think that the idea here is for us to be able to pair the learners into group, and then we assign to them different tasks. From all what he has explained, we now we could anticipate that there are some people here that are slow.
Yes.
What are the variables that are needed for these calculations? We can ask those people to identify those variables that are needed, and then the other people, they can use the formula that is required to do that, and then at the end they can explain to the people who identified those variables, this is how to substitute this is what we did in order to be able to come this.
You have some students who are too fast, like those gifted. You are trying to give them an exercise, but now, like we usually ask ourselves in our collaborative sessions, now that maybe Evina was too fast in this subject and Walter was still behind, how do we manage him? Because if Evina is not occupied or is not busy doing something, he will be bored. So now as a teacher, what do we do when you have such situations?
Before you go to class, having known your learners, you are anticipating that, okay, this exercise that I have, this other group that are fast learners, in 10 minutes they'll finish this exercise. But when they finish now, this other group that are slower, they need 15 minutes. For the rest of the 5 minutes, how do I accommodate these people that finish in 10 minutes so that they don't disturb those who need extra time to comprehend the same material? So sometimes you plan additional work.
What strategy will you use in that case? To occupy the extra 5 minutes for
No,
the fast learner?
you give them an extra exercise to be working on while the other group that are slow are finishing the initial exercise that they have already finished. Because if you allow them, they are going to distract and disturb the other one because they are finished, they don't have anything to do.
You said you give them extra work for the 5 minutes.
Now,
that's what you said.
Yes, not only giving them, yes, extra work by
So that
maybe
they don't
asking
disturb the
them that
other
this
slower
method you use, do you think that there's another method? If they say yes, now please use the next method.
To solve.
These different outcomes could be depending on their abilities. No?
Yes.
Based on their abilities.
We give them a series of tasks.
And tasks to choose.
Choose which one.
Yes.
Some tasks, find out, then explain, then describe.
You see, those are different tasks.
Different tasks.
Yes. It's just like we said, some can be asked to state, which is basic.
Yes.
Others are asked to evaluate, which is now at higher level. Some asked to describe, some asked to even synthesize.
So if you take an example, if you take a law, for instance, a student should be able to at least state the law. Means that all students should be able to state the law.
In fact, demand and supply. So you can say state the laws of demand.
Yes.
Others can be asked to analyze that law. And others can be asked to apply the law.
Very good.
E.g. State the laws of demand.
Let me just say state, explain and apply the law. Those are the different.
Yeah. No, if you say state, apply, and it means one question.
No. Okay, I know. I'm saying with respect to the space.
State the law.
State the law.
State the law of demand and supply. As well, you should give the example already.
Yeah, that will state the law of demand.
Now in this case, you discover that maybe you want to teach a vocabulary lesson, for example. So you will not see that, for example. Now, if you don't first of all put those people in those kind of group and then try to look at those different things, when they see those words, for example, in that text, they may not know what the differences between those words. So you will not pre-teach vocabulary. And you pre-teach vocabulary by asking them. If I give them words, maybe 5 words. I give them 5 words. And I mix them. I mix their words in British English, their words in Cameroonian English, and I ask them to now sort out the differences by classifying the words. Which one do you think is Cameroonian English? Which one do you think is American English? Which one do you think is British English? So before the reading, you have pre-taught vocabulary, and they have already known the differences between those words. So when they come and meet the line into the passage, they will not have any problem because they already known. It could also have to do with words that have different meanings or meanings that are not really up to the level of the learners. You see now? Yes. Maybe words that have whose meanings are challenging. If the meanings of the words are challenging, we now ask them to figure out the context. When do they use this word? Which context? Which context now? Finally, I bring them like kind of checklist now. They see, okay, you can use it on this context now, be able to get the meaning in relation to the way it has been used in the text.
We are working on how we can carry out differentiation by outcome. By what? Outcome. And by outcome here, we will simply see that all the learners are expected to bring forth different outcomes based on their different abilities, making sure that all the learners feel challenged. Because like we said, if at any point any learner does not feel challenged, it means we have stopped that learner from thinking. So we know that learners have different abilities. We have some who can go a step, we have some who can go 2 steps, and others who can even go to the 3rd step. But if we are different, we know that those, just like maybe we know those from whom we expect something just small, we know those who can go medium, and we know those who can go up to full. But that's what we mean now by different outcomes. And by this, we have different tips. The first thing is giving different options, which is just what we started discussing before coming here. Here, learners are given a series of tasks, and each chooses what he or she can do. For example, in each of these tasks, any learner should find something inside based on his or her own ability. Now, we can take a common example in economics, what we call the laws of demand. Candidates at the lower level are simply able to state the laws of demand. Others can go as far as explaining this law of demand. Meanwhile, others can go as far as applying the laws of demand. So we see a candidate who can simply state, others who can go far into explaining and giving details about this law, and others who can even apply the law. All of them, we have different outcomes from this candidate. The second one is levels of expectation, which here we consider what we said when we were stating our objectives. We know that in a lesson we have candidates, we have extents that we expect all to go. We have extent that we expect most to go, and we also have extent that we expect some to go. If we take the simple example of our first law of our law of demand, we see that at least all the candidates, we expect them to be able to state. We expect most of the candidates to be able to explain, and some of the candidates will be able to apply. But hoping that at the end of the day, even those who are at the lower level, we bring them up to be able to apply, because here we are still in the formatives. We are not yet. Then the third tip is presenting learning in a way that best suits the different learners. We know in a class we have learners with different learning abilities. There are some that like seeing diagrams. There are some that have a fear or phobia for tables. There are some that if they just see a page, they feel sick because they want their notes to always be summarized. They just want something, a bit, just some tips. So still taken from our first example of stating the law of demand. Some of these candidates, if you let me open that, they should explain that they should give you what they understand by the law of demand. Some candidates will simply draw diagrams to still tell you what this law of demand is. And you see a downward sloping curve still stating the same law of demand. Some will come up with a table telling you that at this price, this quantity is demanded, at this price, this quantity, and that will still be expecting the same, that will still be explaining the same concept, while others will go as far as writing 3 pages to demonstrate what that law expects. So now each of them, they are all explaining or trying to tell you their knowledge of this concept, but each person bringing it in a different task, and each person chooses a task that he or she finds it more comfortable by his own abilities. Thank you.
Please go on. Questions and reactions, please. Any questions, any reactions? The law of demand and supply. And in the textbook we have an exercise. I don't know if economics is like that. An exercise with questions. Okay, you want the students to answer 2 questions. You cannot ask them to select those 2 questions from how many? From 5. Select the 2 questions number 1 to 5. You already give it the possibility of what? Of options. Because they're going to choose what they like. And once you do that, you've differentiated by outcome. Why? Because at the end, when you'll be correcting the work, you realize that this student has answered question 1 and 2, the other person answered question 4 and 5, the other person answered question 3 and question 1. So the outcome is different from the different learners. But the idea is that what? The idea is that at the end, those questions are assessing the same learning objectives. Yes, question reaction.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, to just ask how you avoid, because we have the all, the most, and the some, and they all have to pick from 5 questions. And all these 5 questions have the same strength. If they have the same strength, in which way are we effectively differentiating from? Will it now be at the level of the performance at the end of the exam? Because probably those who are weaker will pick their questions of choice, but at the end of the day, they may not still answer some aspects of their question.
But if you look at the questions ahead of time, you can realize that, okay, question 1, question 2, question 3 are assessing the first objective of all, those basics. Question 3, question 4, question 5, what are the students going to apply what I've learned? That is the middle of those taxonomy. And the top questions are assessing the higher order thinking skills. So what do I do in that type of case? I say, okay, choose any 3 questions from the 10 questions. But you must choose 1 question from question 1, 2, 3, 1 question from question 4, 5, 6, 1 question from question 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, so we're discussing this point, we equally notice that as a method of differentiation and inclusion, we equally noted that we see the Cambridge exams as very inclusive exams, where some candidates are expected to master only the core concepts in some subjects, and or some candidates are expected to go as far as the extended content is being concerned. So we also see that as a tip in options, and which is also an aspect of differentiation.
Thank you so much. And talking about core and extended, we should know that when the students take the core exams, the best grade they can get is a C.
Yes.
And we think the extended, you have a chance of getting an A. So coming back to the classroom, I understand that teachers who are new to differentiation, they want to differentiate their class A exams. If you differentiate your class exams, you must remember to differentiate the grading.
The outcome. Yes.
Yeah. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Let's say that, okay, I have a student in my class who wrote an exam that was much more easier than the other students, because that is his level. Let me say he wrote the core exams, put that way. And he had something like 90%. Okay, and I have another student who took the extended exam, the difficult exam. I had something like 80%. If I report the grades as this student having 90, the other person having 80, I'm not correct. Because somebody who does not know the students, look at the reports, will know that this student is better than the other one. There's something wrong with the grading. So if you have 90%, I have to differentiate the grading. What you do is that you scale it down to what? To 70. If the person has 90 on 100, you just say times what? Times 70. You've done what? You have differentiated the grade. Because at the end, you're having a mark that is, you have a grade that is differentiated. If you don't do that in the classroom, most of your reports will be inaccurate, will be faulty. They will be faulty, and parents will have a wrong interpretation of the ability of their kids. So we need to take note of that.
I think that what we did with the cases that we had was not different from what Mr. Cyprian has just explained. Because already we understood the difference between the core and the extended. We already knew the risk that we could take if had we registered some students as core. Now, there are some cases where the students were skeptical about them even taking the subject. After discussing with the students, convincing them and pushing them to work, we finally registered them as extended candidates. Some of them scored Bs. And the only challenge we had was at the level of the advanced level, where as we were just talking, I even just saw one of the areas where we did not put into consideration. We would have reduced the number of subjects for the students. We would have maybe registered him for maybe about 3 subjects, or maybe to the worst case 2, so that he would have just focused on those his 2 subjects
when we say the data coming.
Yeah.
We've had some cases like that in the national.
Okay.
But it's only the proprietor, after discussing with him, who takes that decision. And he can say, yes, this child will do only 7 papers, nothing more. This one will do only 8, not more. And we've had wonderful results, which went on now to high school, and they did perfectly well, and they are in the top schools. So we'll be doing that.
Okay, thank you, Mom. Thank you for
Cambridge
those inputs.
is just starting to see.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's listen to the second group, please. Resource.
We are here to talk about differentiation by resources. And like we already heard the other speaker talk about differentiation, maybe by outcome. Talking about resources here, we mean those extra things that we will need to bring in a classroom environment to make the students learn better. But we discovered that in a classroom, every student is not having the same level or the same ability. So the resources we bring in the classrooms are those resources that will either lift a slow learner to a certain level and challenge a stronger learner to another level. Now, we had to tabulate for us to easily explain. The first explanation, the first one, on the first column here you have activity, the second one is the explanation, then we try to get a classroom situation. Now, the activity, other activity, the first one is a translation software. We want to imagine purely in a language class. Now, you may find yourself in a classroom whereby language is a problem to a particular learner. I take, for example, a student who is a German. He understands English, true, but he gets now into a class whereby he needs to first of all understand what you are saying. We had it at Holy Cross some time ago, where the student needs to understand what you are saying in German before he tries to see how he puts it back to you in English. Now, when you have that kind of student, we recommend a translation software, or you can even imagine in a French language class, where, like some of us, when we were studying French was a nightmare. But imagine that you have a translation software that will not it might not give you the exact translation, but it will give you an idea of what it's talking about. Now, there are some students in that class who may need that translation software based on their difficulty, while others will not need it. So we need to be very careful even when we use the translation software, because we may end up being dependent on those softwares. The second activity is worksheet and material. Here, different learners can have different worksheet materials suitable to their different learning needs. For example, what we say, a lesson questionnaire can be adapted differently for different learners. Now, we take the case of, in a classroom situation, for the definition of photosynthesis. There are some learners who easily know the definition of photosynthesis, while others have to learn it. In the worksheet, it's simple. You can do different worksheets for different learners based on the level of difficulty. Now, the first set of learners who know nothing about the photosynthesis, you may put the definition of photosynthesis, then you get to an activity where you write that same definition again, but removing some particular words, for them to be able to identify those words in that definition and put back in context. While another worksheet will not even define the photosynthesis, but will demand that the learner gets the definition of photosynthesis. Another worksheet could still be, after defining all of that, then it shows the importance of the use of photosynthesis. So you see that at different levels, we try to challenge the learners, but at the end, they have the same outcome. Now, classroom environment planning and arrangement. Now, it's very important, because this is something we've been talking about in most of our workshops at Longkak and so, where we say in a classroom you will know your students. There are some who are having challenges, who are having learning difficulties. There are some people who are visually impaired. Now, you arrange your class based on who needs more light. There are some people who need more light in order to see, others who need to be closer to the board, others even who are tall, but they will want to come and sit in front. So you, teacher, you need to rearrange your class in such a way that everybody has a clear vision of your class. Thank you very much for your keen attention.
Thank you. Differentiation by resource. Any questions? Any reactions?
The team is yours. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, presenter. From my understanding of differentiation through learning resources, there are those resources that bring to the classroom to help those who are really a bit slow learners to meet up to the average learner. So I cannot but help to find out the learning resource that we can use in a classroom where we have students who have issues of maybe dyslexia or dysgraphia. Well, who have those challenges?
Someone who is having dyslexia, that he has a problem with reading.
Yes.
It can be that he's an auditory learner. You can still bring in a record. You can bring in a record. Now, if he's having dyslexia, even if it means that even when you lecture, he's still listening. He can easily understand. When you see someone who has challenges in reading, you will discover that he will always sit and he's very attentive in class because he knows that that's the only source of information he can get. If it depends on going to read, he might not get it. So he will be very keen to what the teacher is saying. You know, in the primary school, you will find a student, a learner who will tell you, you tell him 1 plus 1 is 2. Then you say 2 plus 2. He tells you, if he tells you 22, and you say no, it is 4. He says no, our teacher said it was 22. It would take only that teacher to tell him that it is no more, it's not 22 but 4. Because that child is what the child heard from the teacher. So that's a bit
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We'll be presenting group 2, 3 will be presenting on the concept of differentiation by instruction process. Here, the main idea about this concept is the manner in which the data is given out to the learner. And here we have 3 tips to achieve this. The first tip is collaborating learning and group work. All learners are put together according to their learning capacities and assigned tasks to promote peer tutoring. Learning is a free will. It is a will. So, in as much as those learners want to learn from you, they feel more comfortable learning from their peers. So, being in that environment where they can exchange their ideas and interact, give them already a +1 to that effect. Secondly, the pace. It is often said, it is not how far you go, it is not how fast you go, but how far. It is not like giving an assignment and saying you have to do it in 3 minutes. With that, you have already created an environment in which the learner does not feel comfortable. The space. For example, and the variety of instruction, you should be able to use different approaches to get to the same outcome. For example, we have an example there with the quadratic equation, x squared plus 5x plus 5 equals to 0. In that class, there are different students of different capacity. Some will finish fast. Some will take time to. So what do you do with those students that get to finish? There are different methods to solve these quadratic equations. We have the formula method, we have using graph factorization, and so on. The third one is the task giving. We give tasks to different students to use different approaches. In as much as all those 3 tasks can be used to have a common outcome, we can say all students in that class can be able to solve this particular quadratic equation using the simplest method because it is progressional. It should be sequential. You start with the minor exercises, with the simple exercises before you go to the complex one. So at this point, if all students can be able to solve this equation using the formula method, you can give an advantage to other students, those ones that are one step away from If you can be able to solve using this method, you should try using the other method. At the end, the target is to have a common ground where you can have a common result at the tail end. That is it for differentiation process by instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Differentiation by what?
Yes,
Process of instruction.
I'm at the stage of question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Yes, I want to ask the presenter, in group 3 spoke about the pace, that when you give work to students, you must not tell them to go very, very fast, because it's not how fast you go that matters, but how far you go. I think Mr. Konyi made mentions to us yesterday about a SAT exam that they write, mathematics and English exam. I'm just not only talking about SAT, but I know there are some exams that test accuracy and speed. That they expect you that if you spend more than 1 minute 30 seconds on a question, you are already out. How will you handle such cases?
Can I say something before you answer? The content is, I think that at this level, we are still at the level of teaching, we are in the classroom, we are not yet at the level of the exams, because when that time will come for exams, instructions will be given to them to go fast. Because when even that slow learner has already understood that he can answer a question, in quadratic equation using formula, he will also go faster when the question comes.
All right. Hello, everyone. So we will be presenting on differentiation by personal support. We know here that the key to differentiate is the ability to know your learners. The ability to know your learners. Find yourself in a situation, you enter in a room. Maybe before they were coming here, they knew nothing about us, and they are coming to teach. So how should they incorporate that differentiation from the word go? So it will be leading us to look at the tips in order to implement this differentiation by personal support and the first dialogue. You discover that they gave us at some point an activity. They don't know who is weak and whatsoever. And they were a little bit observant. They saw that some people were not writing, and they moved close to them, now understanding their level, and gave them that personal support. So it is a method that you need to be observant in your class. I'll take a situation maybe in a physics practical lesson. Students are required to measure a distance between 2 points. You give them that particular task and you are observing. You see that maybe one learner is just fidgeting with the ruler and whatsoever. You move around, you go close to the learner. What is the problem? How can I help you? Maybe you might discover that the learner doesn't even know how to read the scale on a ruler. And by that, you help the learner for that particular challenge, and he joins the other members, the other peers, and they are journeying together. So at this point in time, I will hand over to Mr. Benedict to continue from here.
Okay, I'll cue in from where the other speaker ended. Remember I like the definition of differentiation that was given by Mr. Konyi. Differentiation is inclusion. What do you do to include those people who consider as slow learners? We identified three tools for differentiation through personal support. He has explained the first. I take the next two, thinking through questioning. Now, thinking through questioning, we decided to use the Bloom's taxonomy. With the Bloom's taxonomy, we discover that there are different ways of questioning that can be classified under aspects like synthesis, maybe to identify the learner's knowledge or comprehension about a particular task. So we decided to diversify the different subjects so that the understanding also can also be very diverse. Check, for example, in an English lesson, you go into the classroom and then you want to introduce a concept. Because I discovered that many teachers get into the classroom and at times they just write the topic on the board. That could be a very wrong approach. Now, there is a way that you could interact with the students through inductive questioning for them to bring up the topic of the day. Now, Madam Manela has something in front of her. Madam Manela, what is that is black in front of you? Something that's in front of you black.
My phone.
Okay, it's a phone. So, what do you use a phone for?
Communication.
Communication. Okay. Now, apart from using the phone to communicate, are there other things that we can use in communicating apart from the phone? Yes?
Research.
Okay, so apart from using that phone as a tool to communicate, what other things can we use to communicate? A gong? Yes? Drum? Whistle? A gong? But what else can we communicate? There was something before that we used to communicate that nowadays, letters. So we now discover that the children have two different types of questioning. The children finally told me that apart from using the gong, the radio, the telephone, or other things to communicate, we can use the letter. So through inductive questioning with the Bloom's taxonomy, we now turn to the board. Today we shall be looking at letter writing. So it inspires them in reasoning and thinking. That was that as far as thinking through questioning is concerned, to raise the weaker learners to meet up at the level of the introduction of the topic, so that they are not just surprised about a particular concept you're about introducing. We go to the next, targeting support. That's what they call in research, target population. The target population is a population that you actually want to work with as far as your data is concerned. Now in the classroom, you may have, as a teacher, targeted some particular students who you really know that they are slow learners. And take note about this particular concept. There is something to note about it. You don't target particular students all the time. It means that now I know that you are slow, I know that A is fast. What happens? You bring them together and merge them in a particular group. Now, I will exemplify, maybe you want to teach maybe reading skills, for example. Madam will tell me that before you teach reading, there's what they call pre-teach vocabulary. Now, can anybody tell me what we're eating? All of us had breakfast this morning. There was something in the bread, brown, on the line. They call it in French, saucisson. Can anybody tell me the English name of that?
It doesn't exist.
Good. Now, imagine that, now, because I'm saying this because I actually had a situation where the child got the name, maybe in a reading topic, and then asked me, listen, what is the meaning of sausages? Sausages. That is the word, that's vocabulary already. Now you have to take time to explain to that child what sausages means, so that when he sees it in other passages that concern maybe food items or so, he now understands that in French is what they call saucisson. So you are pre-teaching vocabulary, but you now put the children in different groups, for example, and you have a checklist also of those words and their respective meanings. When they sit in their different groups, for example, the first learners may be able to identify the meaning, also we give them some time, and then we now bring them the different meanings of the different words for them to match and see exactly what happens. So what happens? They understand the words before they go to the text. Now, many Cameroonians don't know that there's a difference between living room, sitting room, and then you ask other students, they'll say parlor. Now, so when you read the text, you will not ask, the child will ask you, but what is a living room? I say, no, living room is a sitting room. You will not ask, but what is sitting room? I say, okay, now, living room, the sitting room is parlor. The child will do that, okay, I've understood. Now, but you will not discover that in that same classroom, there are students who are from America, who understand that parlor is sitting room. There are students who are from Britain, for example, or from Ireland, or all those countries who have the receive pronunciation. They understand that the parlor is living room. So, those are other aspects to know now, so that you can be able to do what? Those ones who are a bit slow in terms of understanding that particular word in that aspect, you now pre-teach that before you ever dive into the text to read it for all the students to understand. That is differentiation as far as targeting what? The particular, or as far as what you call target support is concerned. You don't identify those ones that you think that may not really know those words per se, but you now put them together. If I mix them now, maybe a classroom that has people from Britain, America, all that, you discover that most of them, that the one who actually help, maybe those ones who have never even touched a plane. There's some who have not been to the airport. There's some students who have never traveled. So you know, now they are not hard work. They contact with such languages. You show somebody maybe a cake and the Cameroonian children will tell a child that is cocky. You not blame him for saying that is cocky and cake. So that was that as far as thank you very much.
Don't you think targeting can bring bias in a class?
That's why I said that targeting doesn't mean that you point all of those ones that you consider slow learners. When you identify them, you know that you have identified them as slow learners. Now, you now bring now those ones who are fast learners and you put them in the same group. You may have different groups now. Remember, it depends on what you want to teach. You may want to teach vocabulary per se, you may want to teach reading. So, I identify someone who is very slow in reading, and then I see those ones who are equally fast. I have two groups, for example, I merge them. Make sure that we have slow and fast learners probably in the same group. There is a column noted there under the same aspect. Don't target those slow ones because it may go a long way to bring down their self-esteem. So you have to merge them in the same group. Now you discover that by the time you begin their checklist, by the time you move around to control, you discover that probably they already got the answer. Why? Because maybe of those effort, of the special effort of those who are considered them as the fast learners. So it's not only for slow learners, but they work together to bring out the answer.
We can actually differentiate by bringing in a teacher assistant into the classroom. You teach computer sciences alone, but when you're going to a particular class and you're aware that the needs of the students in the class are too varied, you will get a colleague in the department so that both of you should go together. In that case, what could happen is that while they're working in groups, you could decide to form homogeneous groups. That is, those guys are really struggling. You have them in one group, and you have the teacher assistant work with them. You may have even differentiated their resource by giving them a worksheet that is easier. That said and done, you're going to close the curtains.
Okay, with this concept of differentiation, I wish to know the link or the relationship between differentiation and Universal Design for Learning, UDL.
The question I want to ask is giving everyone the same thing being fair?
I would say that it depends on the context. There are certain contexts which it will be right to maintain equity. There are certain contexts which it will be right to differentiate.
Fairness is not equity. I'm not going to answer the question directly. I'm just going to be philosophical. Allow you to think. So those of us who have always felt that giving all the children the same learning experiences, the same learning conditions, is being fair, we are discovering that equity is not fairness. To be fair, we need to address the different needs of different people. Practically, look at everything that we need to know to plan a successful lesson that meets Cambridge standards. A good lesson should have an aim, and there should be objectives that will lead to the aim. And it is recommended that the objectives should be differentiated. Apart from learning activities being based on active learning strategies, they are supposed to, each learning activity should be assessed for learning, so that we should be able to identify the areas of misconceptions, gaps in learning, so we can close them before the learners even go home. Furthermore, we live in a very diverse and different world today, in which we have learners of different abilities. And we all agree today that equity is not fairness. That's why the learning activities should be differentiated. And we understood that you can either differentiate the outcome of the lessons, or differentiate the resources that are used in the lesson, or differentiate the process where lessons being taught, or we differentiate by giving additional support to different learners. We're going to listen to four speakers. The first speaker will describe assessment. You can research, please. It's not an exam. The second speaker will define evaluation. And then the third speaker now will tell us the difference between assessment and evaluation. And we'll answer the last question, which is assessment, or what is the link between assessment and evaluation? You are free to research, because it's not an exam, it's a learning process.
Definition of evaluation is the process of judging or putting value on a learning process using established criteria to identify the degree to which knowledge or skill has been gained and applied. The purpose of an evaluation is to judge the quality of learning.
The purpose of evaluation is to judge the quality of the learning. I want to link that up with what a lot of structures do. Most organizations, they have evaluations of their processes and their staff. And we, as she said, we're evaluating, we're judging the quality of the service. Thank you very much. Now, what's assessment?
Assessment in education refers to the process of gathering, analyzing, and interpreting information about students' learning, skills, and performance, which its primary goal is to understand and support student progress and development.
And we are assessing, we are gathering what? Data.
Data.
We're going to analyze for the progress of the learners. What's the difference between assessment and evaluation?
The difference between assessment and evaluation lies in three particular groups.
Okay.
Yes, the first one being the purpose, the second one being the process, and the third one being the outcome. So, as far as the purpose is concerned, for assessment, it focuses on improving learning or performance, while for evaluation, it judges the quality or effectiveness of something which has been taught. And for the process, assessment involves gathering data through observations, tests, or activities measured in progress, while for evaluation, it involves comparing against set standards or objectives.
And for the last part of it, which is outcomes, assessment produces detailed feedback aimed at supporting growth.
Aimed at supporting growth, yes.
Aimed at supporting growth. While evaluation has to do with results in decisions, grade or values, judgments that may be used for accountability, clarification or classifications of what they have so far learned. Thank you.
We've talked a lot about assessing for learning. And we looked at techniques that we can use to assess students so that they can learn. So we are saying that we assess for the growth of the learners. On the other hand, as we already saw at the beginning of this talk, that as learners are getting better, the teachers too should also get better. The big question is, how do I get feedback about the quality of my services so that I can get better? Because that's the goal. The goal is to grow, become professionally more able. I think in our work on the way we're doing the program plan, this came into light. It came into light. We already saw that we can get data for personal growth from different stakeholders. Who are those stakeholders again? One, we have the learners. The important question is, we know that our learners normally will not be very objective. So how can we ensure that the feedback that we get about the quality of our teaching to the learners is objective? Yes?
Okay, looking at that, there are many aspects that we incorporate in our lesson. And one of it is the humanistic aspect, how the learner feels. So you cannot be asking the learner the quality of your content. So the type of questions that the type of data that you gather from your learner is different from maybe the type of data that you gather from maybe asking your colleague to review maybe your lesson and give you feedback. So I believe the particular aspect of your lesson you want to evaluate yourself from determine who you are going for to help evaluate you and yourself.
Yeah, thank you for taking us further. Thank you for taking us one step ahead. Because he has just indicated that apart from getting feedback from our learners, we can also get feedback from professional growth from a colleague who comes in to observe our lesson. You should be willing, you should have the skills, and you should create the time.
I don't know if it's the same here, where the administration gets to assess the student before they integrate the student in the school, especially when it comes to Form 1. So during that assessment, there's somehow, if you're a smart and very attentive teacher or an administrator, you will realize that the IQ of the child does not match. The child is not supposed to be in Form 1. Now you admit the student in Form 1 and you go to the class, and we all know that it's good about knowing our learners. What if you get into that kind of class as a teacher, then the student's IQ is way more beyond the other students, and you cannot, the pace at which the child works, it's going to since we say a student needs to be challenged. So how do we solve that kind of situation? How do you make the class interesting for such a student, since we're evaluating them the same? and you realize you're sitting in class with a 13 years. So, when you meet such a blessing, do you skip their classes or you leave them? Do you promote them or do you give them scholarships way beyond the class where they are supposed to be? That's what I want to
The research has something to say about skipping classes. Research says that it doesn't have a negative impact on learning, but there's a lot of caution about that. Yeah, because for a child to skip a level, you have to be sure that that child is above that level. There are a lot of things to consider. Which resources? Okay, you say you give the child a test. How good was the test that you gave to the child? So you have to a lot of things that you need to put on your table if you take that type of decision. Because if it is not well considered, you could take a decision based on this child is not reliable and will affect that child.
2 years ago, we had a student who wrote a GCE in Form 4. It was not with our knowledge, and that student scored all high-level subjects. But as a policy, if you skip Form 5 and write GCE in Form 4, we don't admit you in lower C. Yes, as a policy. We found ourselves, we got this from a school when we went for prospection. A class 5 teacher used the first school leaving exam and common entrance as a mock for her class 5 students, pupils. And all the pupils wrote the first school and common entrance and passed list A in class 5. And the next year, that school was left without a class 6. As a consequence, the class 5 teacher is immediately laid off because we have no student to teach in the school had no student to teach in class 6. Let me tell you, with our commercial program in this school, if all our commercial students write the GCE in lower C, they will pass. But they may not have the desired grades that we want to get them to. And students being who they are, they will not even know the effect of not having the desired grades. They will rush and go and get into. Even the student who passed in Form 4, 11 paper, that was a student that we knew that when that student gets to Form 5, that's going to be 11 A grade. Now that student passes with about 8 B grades. She's happy that at least she passed, but is that the grades that would have been given to that student? So as a policy, Holy Cross, our students don't skip classes, and if you skip, you are not coming back to continue as a student of the school.
Thank you so much for repeating that with us. Also like what he's saying, I happen to be witness to a child. It's a very smart girl, she was very smart. She wrote the O-levels in Form 4, had 10 papers. The grades were not as good as the girl because it was an all-A student. She went to lower City and wrote the A-levels in lower City. Had 4 papers, but the grades were not as good as the girl. Now the father was a very proud man who knew very little about Anglo-Saxon education. C'est ma fille est très brillante. Elle va sûrement entrer dans une très grande école comme l'université de Cambridge, l'université de Oxford, l'université de Harvard. Those are the things that he had in his mind because the girl was actually destined for greatness. Lo and behold, when he was told that that the child cannot be admitted in those top schools because of her grades, mais qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? So, a child that was destined for big schools, for big universities, eventually could not enter there because the child prematurely wrote those exams and had grades that could not permit her to. And the man got very angry with the teachers that were surrounding him. Because he said, I think he even knew that he will become something against him and his daughter. He wouldn't have ever. That's why he said that those are decisions that you don't just think. A lot of things have to be considered. If you know that, okay, you want this child to have all 5 A's because it's a goal for the child. You say no, because you write in lower city, you will not have the 5 A's. You pass, but you know where you are normally supposed to be. So it's wonderful that you have the policy that children should not skip classes. It's a wonderful thing because it actually prevents a lot of things. In the UK, formally, because they're beginning to relax on the rules now, university admissions, you had to be a certain age before you can be admitted. They're beginning to relax the rules now, though. But initially, if you were not, I think it's 18, right? Mm-hmm. You will be admitted. We have started admitting children now with 17, 16 years. They're trying to relax the rules. So there is also a congruence between the developmental age and the physical age. That's why you go to a certain classroom, they will tell you, okay, everybody in this class is of this age range. Everybody from 1, they have almost the same age, from 2 the same age, from 3 the same age. The cases you're talking about are extreme cases and they're rare. Okay, those are genuices, we mentioned them a while ago. They are rare. But if you see one and you have eyes, you know that this is one. And you can start thinking differently, but until you see one, you cannot think differently. So, will you be surprised to hear that we have actually looked at all the different channels of evaluation? So one, we can evaluate our sessions from where?
From feedback from the learners.
In that case, you must prepare a question. 2, we can evaluate our lessons from feedback from who again?
Other observation.
Also performance observation. And we have said that the person observing should intentionally want to get the other person to grow. Not just that, you must have the skills. And then finally,
self-evaluation.
Self-evaluation. That brings us to the end of our talk. We want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for the huge sacrifices you've made. You've left your families, you left your friends for a cause because you want to make teaching and learning not just enjoyable. We want to contribute to the production of leaders that will make the world a better place. I want to thank you because you didn't just come, you came and you participated. The level of collaboration was top-notch. I want to think that we had the highest level of collaboration at the Holy Cross International College. And I was telling my colleague that the staff of the school is strong because I have a way of measuring the staff strength. I've been training teachers since 2012. So the staff strength is good. Within a very short time, you've proven to us that you can. I will believe that you can. We're going to warn you against one thing. That the only way to get better is by doing. So, our recommendation for you is that you should not assume that you don't know. You should also assume that you know too much. What you should do is that you should get to work. Plan your lessons. Share them with your colleagues. They should look at it. Your friends should look at your lesson and give you feedback. By so doing, you're going to get better in the process of doing what? Of planning lessons. You must have realized that we started with planning and we ended with planning. So planning is the key to success, especially when we are thinking about inclusive education. You must plan. You must plan to be able to move everybody ahead. And if you had an issue of, I don't have the tools, now I can say that you have the tools. And the tools that we gave you are the latest in the market. If you were a thermometer, instead of having the contact thermometer, you now have the laser upgraded version. So you have the tools, and these tools are coming from the DEWEY Cambridge Professional Development Center. And I happen to be the humble program leader. Yes, yes. I will do that since 2012. And I'm here with my friend, brother, and colleague, Mr. Emil. He introduced himself already. Mr. Emil is not just an accredited Cambridge teacher. He doubles or triples as a mentor with traceable evidence, and he is also an examiner for Cambridge. He marks exams for Cambridge, just as most of us here mark here for the Cameroon GC. Yes, he marks Cambridge, and he has experience in administration, head of physics and IT department. So we want to say that it was a privilege to be on the Holy Cross environment, and that our wish is that a seed that we have been given the opportunity to plant, it should grow, and that tomorrow it should be better than us. Thank you very much.
Can we clap again for our great mentor? Words are insufficient to express our profound gratitude for this 3-day very rich package which we have received. We are so grateful. I will feel so elated, so inspired. I'm sure everybody looks forward to preparing his first lesson now and get into a Cambridge lesson to put these wonderful ideas into practice. So for the program ahead of us here, we are privileged to have with us this afternoon the proprietor of Holy Cross International College. Can we give him a hand of welcome? Before he comes up, I will plead on the head of school who will also express her sentiments at the end of this 3 days program. Then after the head of school, we'll give the chance to the proprietor.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I really want to sincerely thank the DEWEY mentorship people who came here to really enrich us with this wonderful training. The training actually cuts across because, like you see, people like Mr. Eric, who is the bossa, he was so involved. The medical doctor, it's not just the Cambridge teachers, but everybody. And we have learned a lot. The participation was huge. And I think everybody mastered everything that was taught here. But the one thing which he has said is putting it in practice and helping each one of us to do a lesson plan, which we all can. And I do hope that this training, the evaluation and feedback, we will like Mr. Conway and Elvis to come back here and really evaluate whether we actually understood what it means by effective teaching. But I'm happy the proprietor is here too, because he is somebody who loves all the teachers. to be well trained and to understand the Cambridge concept. And that it is for the whole school. It's not only for the national, for the Cambridge section, it's for the whole school. And that we will apply these methods following the different curriculum so that this institution will grow higher than what we wanted. And that a lot of differentiation will be practiced in the classrooms to make learning very effective. I asked him a question, what do we do? Hopefully, we will sit as a team. There are few people who will call to take that decision to help those who were not here, because they really have to go through this training till the end and get that certificate. Otherwise, we will not recommend them to teach in the Cambridge section, because we really want teachers who are really actively preparing their lessons following the Cambridge curriculum. I want to thank you people, and I do hope that you will come back here, because we want you to come and evaluate the teaching, whether we actually understood the process or not. So thank you very much for coming. It was very good, and I assure the proprietor that the Cambridge section and the national section, no child will fail again in this institution, and that every child who comes here will be given equal opportunity to grow in learning. Thank you.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say that for the last 3 or 4 days, I've not been sleeping well, because my wife is a student. She has been coming here, and each evening she gives me a rundown of everything that happened, and I myself became a student without even realizing. So there are many questions I would have loved to ask the people who have put this together. But let me say, and let me repeat what she said. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you for opening their minds. And the important thing that you said, to make yourselves better, to make your teaching experience better. Those are very interesting words. And if you can do that, even from 10 to 20 to 30%, that would be wonderful, because I remember that when we started this school, we had such lofty ideas, but unfortunately, we do not have the people to bring that to what we wanted. No matter how intelligent you are, no matter how well organized you are, if you don't have the right people in the right places, your system will not work. Therefore, I'm happy that this seminar took place, this training took place, and that all of our teachers, or most of them, are taking part in this experience. So from Monday, we'll be expecting a lot of changes, first in their attitudes, in the way they treat the young people, the way they come to the administration, and the way they look at life generally. Because if you don't have any ambition, you should not be inside this place. And I think that the ambition should be that you want success. Like she said, we don't want any one student to fail for whatever reason. Given the quality of teachers we have, given the quality of assistance we give to the children, given the fact that there is nothing we cannot do to make sure that they pass, there shouldn't be any reason why a student should fail in any subject. I repeat, in any subject. So if you are a teacher, that's the first objective. How to make that child understand what you are teaching, how to make sure that he knows what he's doing when he's writing an exam, and what exams and what results. By the time a child leaves the exam, he should know that he has passed or failed. But for God forbid that The child leaves knowing that he has failed. You, the teacher, knowing that he will fail. And us, the society, clapping that we did a good job. No, we did not. So I want to ask all of you to make personal commitments how to ensure that this academic year will be a different year in this school. And that is not just making speeches. It's the reality we want to give out. It's giving ourselves. I'm sure you can say my wife is so committed that, as I said, I've not had any rest since she started coming here by what the teachers and the others are doing. So on behalf of Holy Cross, I want to thank you sincerely, but also to mention one thing. We have a lot of seminars in this country, just like we have a lot of good laws, but the application of those laws, the application of those principles is what is not guaranteed. You can have a whole booklet or a whole Bible of good teaching methods, classroom attendance, this. If at the end of the day, you don't apply what you have learned, the knowledge is not helpful. So we must look for ways to evaluate, and continuous evaluation is necessary to make sure that if somebody is not performing, it's not at the exam hall that we'll know. We should know 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, even before the exams take place. So I've been asking our teachers to ensure that they put in place a follow-up system where you can evaluate what these teachers are doing, not just what they will do and get a certification. There are lots of people you know who have big certificates and big diplomas, but know that behind there is nothing. You know that, I know that. So the reality is on the field. The reality is the results that we have from the children. The reality is the feedback that we should get from parents and from the students. She mentioned geniuses. We don't have them. But it's no good idea for us to say we can promote a child when, even if it is by one class. There are so many things that go on in different classes that those children must have at that level. So I'm not going to invent another classroom discussion, but I'm praying that the teachers who are here with us, the administrators who are here with us, will always put our heads together to come up with the best results and the best way forward, because that's what we want for the good of the school, for the good of our children, and for the good of ourselves. So I want us to give a round of applause. Highly recommended work that you have done. But as I said, I'm only waiting for you in your classroom to see whether you learned anything or not, because having a diploma, you can use artificial intelligence and refer to that. But the reality is there. How do you apply that? How do we benefit from the experience? And how do we go forward from there? So once more, on behalf of this community, let me thank you for coming. I hope I'll take part in the next one. If you make it executive, I'll be part of your students learning the subject. But because I know I have a lot of good people with you, that I do not want to come and, because my age going to school is much, you people should be sorry for me. You should really be sorry for me because I'll bring them back their class. So thank you, and have a nice evening. Thank you.
That applause wasn't big enough for the... It's an enormous sacrifice that we happily appreciate the proprietor for giving us this opportunity to build our competencies, sharpen our skills as we get into 2024-2025 academic year.
I think this has been a very rich experience. We started this journey with Mr. Cyprian Conway in 2017, in February, when our wish to write Cambridge exams in this school was almost lost. And as a last measure, it was recommended to us as a coach for the first session of the exam, when we sat in his office for 6 hours, he gave us the syllabuses, taught us how the registration is done, and briefly guided us on how we could register students for that exams that year. And that year we registered 82 students, the Cambridge exams, some of whom came out with very excellent results. And he, that year being the chief of center, I remember that was the highest number, I think maybe in Cameroon, they've ever handled for Cambridge exams. And I remember toward the end of the exams, having a discussion with me, he told me how he had blisters around his legs because of the pressure that was on him, because he wanted to put our students in the most comfortable place to take the Cambridge exams. And again, 6 or 7 years gone into this journey, I think we are coming here, sir, is reawakening that urge in us to see the vision of our proprietor in providing quality education to Cameroonians and those from outside really being achieved. And all we can say is we thank you for sacrificing this time. And I want to urge all the staff of this institution that the only thing, I think in some places, teachers themselves have to pay for this training. But if this school decided to invest in us, let's make use of that investment by getting it over to the children whom we are to teach. And it is the only way that we will show appreciation to our proprietors that yes, we are worthy of the investments they have made in us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you, Mr. Cyprian. Thank you, the proprietor. Thank you, our head of school. This particular seminar, just as the vice principal just made mention of, is a very wonderful experience. And I really wish to say all through from the very beginning of this particular Cambridge program in this school, I can be able to boastfully say I have been part of it. And we were part of the people all through from Douala till today. And at the time when we really didn't have any formation, if we could make the results that came in at that particular time, then I wish to say this particular formation is just to tell us that we should be able to technically improve at all levels and produce better results. And I wish to assure our formators and also assure the management and the ownership of this particular institution that if we didn't have that formation at that particular time and we could do something somehow, then today that we've had that particular formation, we want to promise you, our formators and the ownership, that we're going to do much more better. And I can certainly say that the results will come. I am so grateful because this particular formation has not only helped shape my mindset and my understanding to work just in the Cambridge, but I have gotten enough skills to help me also better my teaching and learning process in the national section. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank the proprietor, the head of school, DEWEY mentorship program, because it has been quite enriching and it serves as an eye-opener to me because I have been in the international educational journey for 7 years, but I would say I was blind because when I look at the pedagogic side of it, I really had no mastery. I could know just the end point, which was maybe the results. This is what we want. But the practices in the classroom, I really didn't have a mastery of it. So I want to believe that having this training is going to help me blend the pedagogic plus the administrative skills that I already have to make things work for the academic excellence we're all seeking for at Holy Cross. So I can promise and assure our proprietor, our head of school, that I think that my involvement in this particular area will be more than your expectations. So I would like to thank you. I would like to thank my colleagues, and I know that together everyone achieves more, and teamwork will surely strive. So here we go for another successful academic year. Thank you.
I'll start by saying that it is a great privilege that I had to be part of this program because it has sharpened my skills and it has equipped me with the tools that I have no other option but to succeed as a teacher. The training was wonderful. The mentors were great. And I'm very, very grateful because not all the teachers of this institution had the opportunity. So I'm promising the proprietor and the administration for the trust that they trusted me to make me to be part of this training, that I'm not going to fail them, but I'm going to go above their expectation. They have already emphasized on the aspect of this training. Actually, I see it like placing me to be a world-class teacher that I can stand anywhere and I teach confidently, putting into practice the tools and the knowledge that I have received from here. Kudos to the proprietor and the administration. Kudos to the training and the mentorship team. Thank you.
When I finished the university in 2014, I actually stayed in the house for 1 year, and I finally got the opportunity to land a job in 2016, but I could not continue. I taught for about 3 months, and then the crisis started, so I had to stay in the house. But a friend of mine said I could come to Yaoundé and apply and get a job. So when I got here, I applied in different schools. This one was not even on my list because just from the buildings, and I was not qualified. I just classified myself, I was not qualified to teach here. But thanks to Mr. Felix, who encouraged me to apply to teach here, I did, and I was accepted. So I just wish to start by thanking Ma and Pa for this great establishment. When I sat there, when the training was over, I told Mr. Roland that I'm a bit emotional. I don't know why, but to be sincere, I want to thank Mr. Roland and Madam Manu because they always push me to bring out the best. I have portrayed things that I didn't know I had. I always pressurize him. I always ask him to give me training programs that I can study and become the best. Last night when I left here, my head was pounding. I had serious headache, but I found when I went to my room, I could not stop. I wanted to create a lesson plan. So I said if I sleep, I might doze off and I will not do the assignment. So I was so into it. I was so happy that I decided to do it before sleeping. Even though I had a little bit of hesitation, I had doubts. I didn't know where to place what. But I came and then I presented what I did, and the fact that it was nice and I was congratulated, it felt really good. And I want to thank Matu for always pushing. She said outside that I should not be afraid to express myself. This training has been really, really helpful because I just came into the Cambridge section last year. So I had a little bit of difficulties. This school has actually pushed me a lot. I have faced a lot of difficulties, but with people around me, even Mr. Ben, my HOD. Even at 11, I always ask him, okay, so this is what I have. How do I apply this? And he's always ready to help me. So I'm really, 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 really happy, and I'm glad for the training I've had. And I would definitely implement all of this. And I'm very happy because my CV now is top notch. Is up. If I apply for a job anywhere, I'm sure that I'm going to be selected. I'm doing a lot of trainings for ESL, how to teach grammar, a lot of programs, thanks to the Cambridge website and all those programs that I have the ability. I'm privileged compared to my other classmates who don't have an idea of what Cambridge is all about. So, and this will actually help me to even apply for a scholarship to further my education. So I'm really, really, really happy. Thank you.
From the onset, the program has been quite interesting and challenging. And there are some aspects of teaching that we have been ignoring, and they have hammered on it, and we see the need for us to incorporate those aspects in the teaching and learning process. And it is very obvious that if we put all of that into play, we'll have better results. There are actually new concepts that the trainers have introduced, and for myself as a teacher, it's quite challenging. And that puts me in a better position to understand the challenges that the students will go through better. And we are already we are becoming more apt to handle the difficulties of these students. And I believe that if the school continues to give the teachers this opportunity, like we do say that the learning process never ends, the teachers will always be up to date. And when your teachers are up to date, you expect better results. This should be taken as a culture that every year the teachers should gain, have to be trained so that they gain more skills in different domains related to how they handle their students better, especially those with so much needs, like those with special needs. So when this becomes a tradition and becomes part of us, we'll be proud to say that Holy Cross International is actually a better place to be. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it was a brilliant idea for the head of school to conceive this idea to organize this workshop. I must admit that it has been very enriching because there is a lot that we have learned and also reminded of those salient things that are important to carry this school forward, which we have neglected. And I think that looking forward through to the beginning of the new academic year, we have the impression, or I have the impression, that it will be a better academic year because all the participants, from their gestures and what we chat and get, they are very impressed with this, and there will be a lot of innovations that will take place in the classroom, and we are looking forward to have better results in our next end of course exams. And so we can only say kudos to our head of school, and we wish that many more of such seminars should be organized in the days ahead. Thank you.
Okay, first I would like to appreciate the administration for this opportunity for us to have this program, because it has really helped us and it has really made us to innovate in many things. We have gone far as researching this regarding the fact that at first most of us teachers who might not have known how to plan our lessons, and this program has really helped us to plan our lessons, to know the different strategies and the methods we can use to help students, to aid them to grow not only for themselves, but to build their confidence and also to impact their society and all those around them. So I just want to say thank you to our coordinators for this very opportunity to come and help us pull us through this. And as teachers, we have really learned a lot that can help most of our learners, educate them on so many stuff and be able to pull them through so many situations. So thank you to the administration and to our coordinators.
So this seminar, I've really found it so amazing. It has been so good. It has been so, in fact, it has fed me with a lot of knowledge that I wouldn't have had that if I was to do research on my own. So it has been so good. It has been so amazing, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot in terms of how to manage your classroom, certain classroom activities, how to make your class look very active. Also, with respect to how to make the learners love the subject matter. I think it has been so good, and I say kudos to the administration. I say kudos to the facilitators, because I've made it very good, very relaxed. We are all, everybody's at ease, and the learning is taking place so well. So I really appreciate, and I say thank you very much to them. And not to forget the administration for making this possible, because it is because of them that we are here. They have put in a lot of efforts, they have put a lot of finances to make sure that this is happening. So I really say thank you to the administration, and I say thank you to you too.
This training program has been very exciting and wonderful. It has been one of the best training programs on the Cambridge teacher standards that I have gone through. It's refreshing. It brings back the love for the job, for passing on knowledge and helping every learner to become what they were meant to be. So it's been a real privilege for me. I want to appreciate the facilitators and also the proprietor for making it possible for us. Thank you.
I want to sincerely thank the administration of Holy Cross International College. The trainers came from DEWEY College in Douala. It was an opportunity for me to be part of this seminar. Initially, I thought it was only for teachers, but I think that the knowledge I acquired from this training goes beyond just being a teacher. Thank you.
Yeah, I am particularly very impressed with this 3 days capacity building seminar workshop coming on the heels of the academic year, new academic year 2024-2025. It has given the opportunity to all the teachers of Holy Cross International College opportunity to strengthen their capacity, sharpen their skills, especially areas of lesson planning, which has actually been a difficult task for many of them, because looking at the background of many of our teachers, they're coming from the national schools. So the seminar has come in so timely to strengthen the capacities of our teachers in this domain. And I'm very optimistic that the next academic year, 2024-2025, will be very, very successful, and not only in terms of academic success, but in terms of grooming the children in a holistic manner that will make our institution stand tall in Cameroon, Africa, and even the world. So I thank our DEWEY mentorship for these 3 days input, and I will look forward to these seminars to be an annual event, so that in the next 5 years, our skills of all our teachers must have been taken to a level where they will be able to meet the challenges of all the learners, irrespective of their individual challenges. Thank you very much for the interview.